was no way that these charges would ever lead to trials in either case. Jack Smith was going to be fired on Trump's first day in office, and I think that rather than face that, he's decided to throw the towel in with very little option. He's worked very hard, I think, over the last 2 years or so to bring these cases, to set these cases up, to bring charges against Donald Trump. But as president, there's just no way that a federal court would entertain either case.
And a federal judge in the United States has dismissed a major case against Donald Trump that alleged he illegally sought to overturn the 2020 election. Jack Smith, the special prosecutor who brought the criminal case against Trump, had asked to have the charges dropped, citing a Justice Department policy that bans the prosecution of a sitting president. And Judge Tanya Chutkan has dismissed the case without prejudice, meaning the charges could be refiled after Trump finishes his second term. The president-elect had pleaded guilty in both that case and the case claiming that he'd illegally removed documents from the White House. Well, let's talk to Alistair Dawber, the Times Washington correspondent. Good evening to you, Alistair.
Hi, Carol.
Just take us through the significance of this case against Donald Trump that he'd illegally tried to overturn the 2020 election. Is that now off the table altogether?
I think pretty much. I mean, in a way, we've been expecting this ever since Donald Trump won the presidential election on November 5th. As you mentioned there, the Department of Justice has a long-standing policy that dates back many, many decades that it won't prosecute a sitting president. And of course, there were 4 cases pending against Donald Trump, 2 in federal courts, which is what we've been talking about today, and then 2 others. The federal cases were going to be almost certainly removed. This first one, as you say, in Washington, relates to his conspiracy, as the charges, 4 charges, speak to overturn the result of the 2020 election where he lost to Joe Biden, and his behaviour, what he did in the run-up to the riots at the Capitol on January the 6th in 2021. Now, he pleaded not guilty to these 4 charges. They were going through the court, and then, of course, he wins the election. So Jack Smith, who'd been appointed by the Department of Justice as a special prosecutor, asked the court earlier today to dismiss the charges in the Washington case and also another case in Florida where he faced 40 charges over the retention of secret government documents, secret government papers after he left office, and he took them down to, was alleged to have taken them to Mar-a-Lago. Jack Smith in both cases has asked the judges to dismiss the cases and dismiss the charges. And so, as we've been expecting, those cases fall. Now, there is, as you suggested, potentially an opportunity in 4 years' time for these cases, these charges to be reinstated. But I think with the passage of time and rules and changes that Donald Trump might make in office, I think that is a little bit far-fetched at this stage.
Is this just a case of the special prosecutor here, Jack Smith, trying to get in first and get rid of these cases, given that Donald Trump, I think I'm right in saying, had said that he was going to sack Jack Smith the moment he took office anyway?
Within 2 seconds of taking office is the quote. Yeah, I mean, there was... yes, I mean, I think so. There was no way that these charges would ever lead to trials in either case. Jack Smith was going to be fired on Trump's first day in office, and I think that rather than face that, he's decided to throw the towel in with very little option. He's worked very hard, I think, over the last 2 years or so to bring these cases, to set these cases up, to bring charges against Donald Trump. But as president, there's just no way that a federal court would entertain either case.
So where does this leave Donald Trump in terms of the legal cases against him? Because we have talked about these 2 federal cases, the claim that he tried to illegally overturn the previous election and that case relating to the removal of classified documents. But there's also the hush money case, isn't there? And at least one other.
That's right. So the hush money case is already being convicted. This is the one in New York where he was convicted of paying a porn star to keep the details of their relationship secrets. in that case, we had progress last week. His lawyers have tried to use the same argument that it's impossible for a sitting president to be sentenced. And in part, the prosecution have agreed. They've agreed that no, they don't think that the case should be completely overturned and Trump exonerated, but they have said they'd be willing to wait for 4 years before Trump to serve out his second term in the White House before he's sentenced. And then there's a fourth case in Georgia, which potentially has always been the most serious for Donald Trump because there's no federal element to this at all. This is a Georgia state case in which he's accused of trying to overturn the 2020 election in that state. There's no federal oversight. But again, it's difficult to see how the DA in that case in Atlanta can really expect sitting president to be hauled in front of a court and answer charges while they're also trying to run the country. That case has also struggled. Fannie Willis, the district attorney, has faced allegations over her relationship with one of her fellow prosecutors and whether that was sufficiently well disclosed. So even in that case, Donald Trump has got leverage. And I think speaking to most legal scholars, most analysts, it's difficult to see how Donald Trump has another day in court, at least for the 4 years.
And Donald Trump has already been setting out, of course, putting together the team for his new administration, setting out what some of his priorities are going to be. And one of them is getting rid of all trans people serving in the military. Just briefly, if you could, Alistair, tell us what sort of reaction there's been to that.
Well, that's a story we broke last night, that even as early as the 20th of January, Trump's inauguration day, we understand that he's planning an executive order to remove serving trans people from the US military. In his first term, he banned trans people from joining, but allowed those who were still in service to continue in their jobs. We think he's going to go further this time and have them medically discharged, which essentially suggests that they're unfit for service. We think it's about 15,000 such people currently in the US military. The reaction has been quite significant. On the one hand, you've got a lot of Trump supporters who believe that the military is concentrating on things which Donald Trump, I think, would term as being overly woke, rather than concentrating on who America's enemies are and how to defeat them. There are those that charities, for example, that look after the interests of trans people in the military, saying not only is this a tragedy for the 15,000 or so people that currently serve, but also it's very difficult for the military. Remove these people and all of a sudden chains of command are broken, the appropriate numbers of people on battleships and battalions fall short, and the military has a problem. There's only one service, the US Marine Corps, that hits its recruitment targets every year. Every other service falls short. So a lot of people say, look, this is really shooting yourself in the foot, if you'll excuse the sort of pseudo-military term. It's just really not very good for the US military.
Alistair Dawber, the Times Washington correspondent. Really good to speak to you. Thanks so much for joining us.